Jeff, welcome to the show, man. How you doing today? You doing all right?
I'm doing well, Jamal. Good to hear you're feeling better.
I'm in pain. I am in a lot
Mm.
of pain, but it's okay. It'll pass. It'll pass. Just to give a heads up, Dr. Jeff Rich. Dr. Jeff Rich is a historian, author, retired government official from Melbourne, Australia, with a PhD in history and over a decade of experience or decades of experience in government. He created the Burning Archive YouTube channel and Substack, where he shares commentaries, book reviews, interviews on world history, culture, and politics. Jeff has written several books, including 13 Ways of Looking at a Bureaucrat. Welcome, Dr. Rich. I'm glad you could join me, man. I really am.
Really
Um,
good to join you.
I watched Donald Trump at that. I was about to say award ceremony because that's what it felt like for Donald Trump because he was just hamming it up the entire way through. There's so many embarrassing moments at that ceremony. One, for example, and I can't tell if he thinks his audience is that dumb when he says stuff like this, but listen to this. And I want to get your take on this. This is Donald Trump when he's signing. He's in Sharm el-Sheikh. Beautiful vacation resort. Listen to what he says here. That's the big here.
Okay.
I suppose this is him signing the peace agreement.
It seems to be a big American ritual.
1,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up too. It's going.
3,000 years.
How long did he say? 3,000 years.
3,000 years. 3,000 years to finally get to peace in the Middle East.
So that takes
and
us
it's gonna
to
hold up.
2000 BC.
Yes. Yes.
No, 1000 BC. 1000 BC.
years.
Yes.
Dude, I can't tell if his supporters believe this stuff. Like I've seen some Trump supporters like drunk and screaming, Trump is saving America and stuff like that. And I think to myself, okay, that guy maybe believes it. But they can't be this dumb. They can't be this dumb. Give me your take on this.
Yeah. Well, I saw his speech and looked at the sort of transcript on the roll call website, and he does say that he says, I've heard it's somewhere between 500 and 3,000 years. 3,000 years would put it at 1000 BC, and apparently there were big posters in Israel celebrating or making a connection, I think, between Donald Trump and Cyrus the Great, who was
They were. Yes, they were.
an early Achaemenid Persian emperor who sort of kind of via conquest sort of unified the Middle East really for the first time. But that was, I just checked the dates just earlier, there's not an awful lot known about Cyrus the Great. That was 560 BC. So I don't quite know who Donald Trump's historical advisors are. Of course, 500 years ago would be, what's that? That's about 1520 or so. So
Yep.
at that point, the Ottomans had taken Constantinople and were controlling most of the Middle East. So it was, I think, reasonably peaceful there for, a couple hundred years, of course, until, European colonialism arrived. British and French fought over Egypt and et cetera, et cetera. So it's just crazy. But I feel the best way to interpret Donald Trump these days is he has two great skills in life. One is signing documents in big Sharpie pens, and he does that, so he signs his executive orders and he signs his peace deals. And then the other one is he does Trump rallies. And when you actually look at the nature of the performance and the structure of his speech at the event in, I'm not quite sure where it was, you said it before, but around the Gaza peace deal, it's basically a Trump rally, basically. He sort of comes in and throws out a few boasts about how great he is, and then he sort of kind of does the call out to all the important people in the crowd, and says, "Come over, Keir Starmer," and doesn't Georgie Maloney look great, and all this sort of thing. It praises his own staff, and it goes on for about half an hour, and after about half an hour, he actually says something of substance, for about 30 seconds, and that's it. And it's comical, frankly, just how incompetent and how unmatched to the gravity of the issues that it really is. So it's quite sad, but comically sad. It's just I think I've made the decision that the only way to really respond to Donald Trump is to treat him as the greatest political comic of the 21st century, and not to take him too seriously.
Problem is, Jeffy is nukes. And everybody plays along. That's the wild.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is another thing that took place. It's amazing to me how European leaders allow themselves to be humiliated by Trump in this way. They jump up and down whenever Trump calls them. Macron, Keir Starmer got caught with this. Take a look at Starmer here. Starmer seems happy as can be when Donald Trump calls his name.
United
Look at him the
Kingdom.
moment that Donald Trump
Where's
dismisses him.
United Kingdom? Where's Russia? Come here.
He's so happy.
Is everything going good?
Very good.
It's very nice that you're here. These people all came and
Look at that look. Look at that look. He's like, what the hell just happened?
Did you notice this gesture? He was sort of kind of gripping his forearm really high up, and because I watched it, and he was doing that sort of gesture for quite a while before that, and he looked really uncomfortable. And then Georgia Maloney, who's kind of a couple of doors down.
Yeah.
I think this incident with Keir Starmer happens just after the Pakistani Prime Minister, sort of inserts himself into the order of proceedings, and says Donald Trump really ought to have won the Nobel Peace Prize. And everyone's looking a little bit uncomfortable. And Georgia Maloney literally does this.
Well, she's not good at hiding her expressions. She's very
and
open.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah. But watch Starmer. Starmer's not good at it either. I'm completely
Where's
for
United Kingdom? Where's Russia?
He's very happy.
The
president has contacted me.
Is everything going good?
Very good.
It's very nice that you're here. These people all came and
just dismissed.
20-minute notice. And I think it's fantastic. And we have so many others, and it's just so many.
He was so happy.
I'm going to give. I'm going to give an alternative interpretation, which was Keir Starmer was watching this whole weird performance from Trump, thinking, "My God, this is just bizarre." The Keir Starmer things happened. The Pakistani Prime Minister thing had just happened. Keir Starmer has literally just come up from a sort of summit meeting with Narendra Modi. And there's significant tensions there. Pakistan's literally just bombed Kabul, and Keir Starmer, I felt, was sort of awkwardly trying to sort of read, well, what the hell is Donald Trump asking me to do now? Because it was a really just weird, chaotic performance from Trump. There was no sort of structure or it wasn't like he had something important to say and he said it clearly and directly and sort of said it and, got on with the business. It was just this meandering sort of thing that was praising various people and saying, how pleased he was about the airport, the airplanes that were accompanying him, and how rich all the leaders were and all this sort of thing. So I don't know. I would give. I know a lot of people have interpreted that as humiliation, and I think there is an element of that because I mean I think Donald Trump can't stand in a room with another person without trying to exert his kind of physical dominance over or psychological dominance over them in some way,
Yeah.
and it's just a reflex of instinct. But I think everyone standing behind him knows that as well, and it's sort of like that. They all know that's happening, and it's sort of like, well, you're not going to challenge that in the moment either. You just have to somehow awkwardly handle it. It's a difficult thing.
I know you said
I
this
mean,
is weird. This is normal. I don't know if you guys see it in Australia, like we see it
oh,
in the States. This is
we
every
yeah,
day, all
we get
day,
it all the time. Yeah,
every press conference. Like he would have like these governmental meetings, and
yeah,
the entire meeting is just people saying, "Sir, you smell fantastic this morning. I just wanted you to know that." And then they move to the next person and it says, "Sir, you've done such a great job. I can't believe they didn't give you the Nobel Peace Prize." And there will be
yeah,
the entirety of it where they go around the round table and each person just tells Trump how awesome he is. It's so bizarre. And so when he gets up there and he does this on the world stage, I know people outside of America are like, what is wrong with him? And
mm,
for us, you know what it is? It's kind of like having a bad child. And you take
mm,
that bad child to the store, like in Toys R Us or something like that, and the kid just flips out. And the parent just stands there. Now, from the parent's point of view, well, he's not that bad today. From everybody else's point of view, that kid is out of his mind. That's what Trump is to America. Like
yeah,
we see that, we just think that's humiliating, but that's Trump.
yeah.
I, I,
Well, it's pretty embarrassing, I think, and I think it's easily manipulated. And you see, this is the thing. I think a lot of these immediate signs that people are interpreting as humiliation and
yeah,
Trump asserting himself, etc., is people who know they have to play along and are doing that, but they're not really playing along. I mean, I've been a government official, and one of the things you have to learn as a government official, particularly with the political leaders, is you need to if you're going to challenge or question something, you need to do it in a certain manner that is appropriately deferential, but not too sycophantic. So it's a really quite delicate little,
oh yeah, balance.
acting performance, if you like, where
Uh,
you never quite openly say to Donald Trump, "You're a fucking idiot." Oh, sorry. Sorry, I hope you don't get demonetized because of
You're
me,
fine.
Jamal.
You're fine.
Uh,
It's like you have to thread the needle in the way that you deal with it.
yeah,
And it's inelegant at best because you don't
yeah,
know. Like he's one of those people that takes you off balance, and
yeah,
they don't know how to negotiate that. Like you're not dealing with
yeah,
a typical politician. No, I get that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
get that. Speaking of that, oh please, no, finish. I want to
Yeah,
finish
and
before I move on.
it's just so rambling as well. It's just so rambling. So I mean, I just can't see this peace deal really holding particularly. And see, the other thing I would say about this is I also think that the whole. I mean, I would imagine that this event, um, you know, uh, Donald Trump bringing peace for the first time in the Middle East for 3,000 years,
Right, right.
has been planned since the 20th of January. They've had, because in modern government, what they have this sort of forward schedule of events in Australia. They tend to call it the grid, which is
Uh-huh.
basically how they want to sort of run the political narrative, the sort of imagery and the political stories that they want to sort of create out of various news announcements and all that sort of thing. And I would have thought that the White House would have been running a grid which, has a series of, and we've seen this, a series of peace deals justifying Donald Trump,
It's
getting the
peacemaker in
Nobel
chief.
Peace Prize. And we've had the anniversary of the the Hamas, the kickoff of the events in Gaza, and this sort of event, like 2 days after the Nobel Peace Prize is announced, it would have been in the diary forever. So I think there's been a plan to get this kind of grand announcement, including the hostage deal, done by this point, so it can be done. And the only negotiation point is really, what else do we need to get in to make sure we get enough people there for it to be a success? So
Yeah.
so it's a very stage managed thing, but the actual substance is not really there behind it.
Well, what's sad about it is this is the exact same deal. If that's true, Jeff, that's more disgusting. Because what that means is that for all intents and purposes, Donald Trump gave Israel full backing to murder as many people as they wanted, for as long as they wanted, up until the point where they can say, okay, now we got a deal. This is the same deal that Joe Biden turned down. Meaning it's not like Trump got more out of it. This was the deal that was offered to Joe Biden and Netanyahu, both of which turned it down. Couldn't get Joe Biden to move on the deal at all. This was what, 2 years ago, a year ago, give or take?
May 2024.
And so, yeah, so that means that for a year, this was just sitting on the table. And they let how many ever 100,000 people get killed, starved, etc., for up until this point. And to make this even worse, even though we're joking about Trump in this moment, do you really believe that those people who are there believes that this is going to last?
No, I don't think so. I
yet
really
they
don't
play
think
along.
so. And apparently, the Egyptian president made quite a strong speech, actually, in the presence of Trump. And I don't know exactly how Trump responded, but he really talked about the need for a strong, durable peace that includes the two-state solution, all this sort of stuff. And a lot of people might criticise some of these sort of diplomatic phrasings, but it was nonetheless vastly more strong than what's in the 20-point plan. So I don't think they really do think it is going to last. But I guess the question is, how much has Israel's opponents been weakened in the year or so since, or 18 months since that May 2024 deal, and they would have been significantly, I guess. The Hamas has been degraded. I can't quite remember all the events over the last 18 months, but I don't think it's been terribly good for the people opposing what's been going on in Gaza. So it is dreadful. It is dreadful, and a lot of the substance of this deal is about disarming Hamas and delegitimizing Hamas, and all the pretty fuzzy sort of long-term promises about rebuilding and dialogue processes and respect and things like this, which are almost certain to break down at some point, or people will find some reason to justify departing from some point.
Well,
So yeah,
speaking of that,
it's a very bleak situation.
Israel Cats, ironically named. Israel's great challenge after this phase of returning the hostages will be the destruction of all Hamas terror tunnels in Gaza directly by the IDF and through the international mechanisms established under the leadership and supervision of the United States. And the question is, what does that mean? Well, that means that the IDF obviously has to be in Gaza if it's going to do that. The IDF meaning, A, they're going to be there for an indeterminate amount of time anyway. And B, this sounds like once we get our hostages back, we're going back in. This is the primary significance of implementing the agreed upon principle of demilitarizing Gaza and neutralizing Hamas of its weapons. It's funny, Israel has murdered over 100,000 people, and they never say anything about demilitarizing Israel, not to mention they have nukes. I've instructed the IDF to prepare for carrying out the mission. So as soon as we get our hostages back, we're going back in.
And there's apparently meant to be an election in Israel next year, I believe. There's the issue of Netanyahu's trial, that sort of thing as well. So yeah, I suspect even Netanyahu's probably playing Trump to some degree. You know, I've given you your big announcement, that sort of thing. You can just blame Hamas when it goes sour,
Yep.
and yeah. So it's really it's just, I mean, there's very little good news in it all, is there? It's just very, very sad.
You know, it's
I mean,
interesting.
as I understand it, there has been some relief and celebration,
Yes.
and you know, like there's 2,000. I think it's something like 200, like 20 hostages and 2,000, well,
That are
200
live. Right.
prisoners. You know, it's quite a large number of prisoners coming back from the Palestinian side, which is, you know, I mean, that's 2,000 people who are out of captivity. So, or 2020. And so I think that is certainly a good thing. But I
Mhm.
just, you know, I fear that it's going to break down and lead to, you know, further dreadful events. But
You
I
know,
guess that's partly going to be a calculation about, you know, military strength, political strength, those kind of things. So,
agreed. Yeah, agreed. Because part of me thought too that part of the reason that they even went with this is because Israel needed time to rest themselves. We need
yeah,
to rearm. We need to, you know, we don't have the troop strength that we really want. We can't accomplish our objectives militarily. So at the very least,
mm,
we're going to try to accomplish this through other
mm,
means if we can't do it militarily. Like this is a dodge per se. I mean, obviously
yeah,
Hamas and the Palestinians who
yeah,
are not Hamas, just people have been getting murdered en
yeah,
masse.
yeah,
And so you can imagine the level of pressure that's on Hamas to make a deal, whether they want to make that deal or not. But the other aspect to this, as you point out, as a bureaucrat acting, all of these European leaders were looking for a dodge. Like they were looking
mm,
for a way as a pressure release valve on themselves.
mm,
Because you can see what's happening in Italy, where there's like standoffs with the cops, like daily over the
mm,
issue of Gaza, especially when the flotilla was captured and all hell broke loose, where you had all of these
mm,
protests in the UK, all of these protests in the various European countries. And so these European leaders seem to have been looking for a release valve. We need a way out. We
mm,
need a something where we can say, hey, look, we're on path to a two-state solution. Please calm down now and go back to whatever you guys were doing before and play your Xbox or whatever and leave us alone.
mm.
That seems to be what the reason why so many of these world leaders are like, oh yeah, we'll in 20 minutes we'll show up at Sharm el Sheikh. We'll make it at that appointment. I mean, for God's sake, Macron's government has literally collapsed. He put a guy back in who had already been kicked out, or at the very least had failed. Like to give this kind of idea of where France is right now. And even he showed up. None of these people have anything to do with this deal at all. They're just there to
Yeah,
show their face. And so it's
yeah,
like, okay, well, why are they there to show their face? It seems like they're there to show their face just to show their populations, hey, A, we're relevant, even though they're not. And
mm.
B, we are a part of something that is trying to get a two-state solution. So please calm down. Give me your take on that. Am I being too cynical in the way that I'm looking at this?
Well, my very strong hunch is this was not organised 20 minutes, you know, on 20 minutes notice, as Donald Trump implies. I just
Yeah.
can't actually believe that is
Well, I'm saying for the European leaders.
a real. Well, I
Or,
don't
or
even
you,
believe it was the case
oh,
for
fair
them.
enough. Fair enough.
I suspect this date has been penciled in, even if arguably for another purpose, with a lot of these people for quite some time.
Yeah.
The European leaders that were there was Italy, there was Germany, there was France, there was Britain, but also the Spanish leader was there, and Spain has been quite
Critical.
critical of Israel as well.
Mhm.
So I'm not quite sure what the motivation there was. Viktor Orban was there as well. So, and I'm not really
Wait, Orban
100.
wasn't there. Orban wasn't there.
Wasn't he? I thought he was there.
Orban was not. Orban was not there. In fact, I have a clip for you on
Ah,
that. So Donald Trump, again, taking the time to humiliate the European leaders, turns around and says, "Where's Victor? Where's Victor?" And he's like, you can see Starmer and all of these other guys like bowing their heads away and everything. He's like, "Oh, I love Victor. I know you guys don't agree with me on this, but Victor is great. Victor is great." He's doing that explicitly because Orban is not there. And let me find the clip. The clip is hilarious.
Yeah.
Right here. And yeah, he said they hate Orban because he defends Hungary. Well, that's not what Trump said, but this is the Orban clip. Orban was not there. This is Orban. I mean, this is Trump rubbing it in.
Victor, I call him. We have Hungary. Oh, Victor. Where is Victor? Victor. We love Victor. Victor, I call him. You know, I put the little accent on it. You are fantastic. All right. I know a lot of people don't agree with me.
Oh, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
That matters what it. Yeah. You are fantastic. He's a great leader. I endorsed him the last election he had, and he won by 28 points.
Look at Starmer.
Yeah, he doesn't like that.
Have another election. You're going to do great. And we
doing well.
Okay, yeah, I'm wrong. For some reason, I thought Victor wasn't there. Maybe because he wasn't in the camera. Yeah. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right.
But see, that's the Trump rally thing. He's sort of commentating on himself, and I call him Victor, with a little accent. And he's just backslapping himself because Victor supports him, and it's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of pathetic. But to answer your more substantive question, I'm not convinced that this is a particularly important. They're going there to be in Trump's good books. Okay, They don't want to alienate Trump. They've probably known that this is on the cards for months, and it's sort of like going to your daughter's 21st birthday party. You don't miss it. And there have been significant protests in Europe, but they're not really shaking the foundations of those governments. I don't think really in Europe, are they? I mean, the problems in France, the problems in Germany are more about the political divisions across the political spectrum and the lack of parliamentary majorities and the inability to form effective, coherent governments. And and I don't say this in any way to diminish the efforts of the protesters or the importance of the issue, but I just don't think the protests are that much of a serious challenge to the ongoing nature and the continuity of those governments. So they may well be looking for some sort of safety valve. I think the various states that recognise Palestine, the safety valve was the recognition of Palestine in recent months by multiple, France, Spain, Australia, Britain. They all, I don't think Hungary did, but and I can't remember whether Italy did, but I think that was the safety valve for those countries. This event was not.
Well, Italy did not. Italy did not. Maloney famously did not. That's why they were pissed off. Yeah.
So, and I think the sources of political instability are really other factors in those countries rather than the Palestine issue. I mean, regrettable though that is, but I do think that is the case. And I've been a government official. You do occasionally have protests against the things that you do. In a way, it happens, and politicians learn to be thick-skinned and sort of sit through it.
I'm sorry, you piqued my curiosity on this one. When there's a famous scene with Nixon is at the White House, and he's like, "They're coming to get me, Henry," talking about Kissinger, right? And that was when protests were protests. That was when Nixon thought, "Oh my God, they're going to break these buses down and they're going to come and get me." And there's this belief, Chris Hedges used to say that that's where government needs to be. Government needs to be terrified. That's the only way government functions, is if they're terrified of the populations. And if that relationship is inverted, the population is screwed. When you guys are dealing with protests, does the government feel that pressure? When you are, as you say, a bureaucrat, and there are mass protests and people are fighting cops and people are getting injured. And what is going on in the political space when that is taking place? I'm super curious.
Well, it depends a lot upon who's protesting and whether they are really sort of cutting through in the media. And I mean, sometimes people, it sort of becomes a, if you push me, I'll push back against you sort of psychology. It's sort of like it sort of steals people's will to carry on with things. But I was involved with the alcohol and drug policy for quite a long time. And in Melbourne, a few people in Melbourne might remember this, that, there were the huge COVID protests in Melbourne, where people got sort of shot at and things like that. The way a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people responded to that was it turned people against the protesters. It was sort of like, it's sort of damn those bloody peasants sort of thing. So the idea that, protesting necessarily makes people afraid, I don't think is really accurate. But yeah, there were all these protests about a government decision about sort of closing pubs early in Melbourne, and people were, which was specifically a policy that I was working on. Wasn't something I advocated, but was something I was working on, and people were marching down the street with these signs saying, I want to get drunk at 2 a.m. again. Sort of thing. It was like they were big protests.
It's time to get drunk, Jeff.
Yeah, and half the people in our department were sort of sitting at the windows looking down at the march, just going, yeah.
So just so clear, the policy was to prevent people from buying alcohol at a certain time frame?
Yeah, it was a thing called a 2 a.m. lockout. So it's sort of like you sort of close the doors at 2 a.m. and you had to finish your drinks there. But, but there was something that happened. Sorry?
They protested that? The bars typically closed at 2 a.m.
Absolutely. Because a few of the pubs said that they to shut down and things like that. So people were having signs, I want to get drunk at the tote again, and things like this. So it was super controversial. But what really scared the government was at one point, the band AC/DC, they're an Australian band, they did this famous song, Long Way to the Top, If You Want to Rock and Roll, where they performed the song on a truck going down one of the main streets of Melbourne. And they happened to be in Melbourne at the time of these protests. And this rumour went around, because the sort of rock industry was being affected by all the hotels closing, but a rumour went around that AC/DC were going to sort of re-perform Long Way to the Top down Swanston Street in protest against things. And that scared the hell out of the government.
Really?
They were really, truly terrified. So things like that potentially have a high symbolic resonance, I guess, with people, that really, I guess, go viral, I guess, in popular terms, that would sort of become a symbolic sort of resistance. And, maybe the Greta Thunberg thing is a bit like that. They can scare people because they feel it starts to create this sort of uncontrolled media reaction. But the other thing is, whenever those protests are happening, there's all of the negotiation around the actual practical interests involved. So everyone sort of knew that a lot of these hotels were actually geeing people up to get out and protest about it because they had financial issues and things like this. I at least from my perspective, having been on the inside, I feel Chris Hedges is probably wrong there. The issues still have to be resolved, and that's the same. That's the same thing with the issue with Israel and Palestine. You can get as many people out on the streets as you like. You still actually need to come up with some practical, workable solution to sort of resolve the peace agreement, and people just don't seem to be able to quite do that yet. So all those leaders, I think, are probably just, we've done this rodeo before. We'll play along with the Trump circus. We'll, we'll give him a nice present at his birthday party, sort of thing. Even though we hate his guts, and we will, put up with the drunken uncle sort of saying weird stuff at the party, but we, it doesn't actually sort of affect the nature of our real decisions all that much.
I think it depends.
That's what I think. And interestingly enough, apparently the Indian, and there's been a bit of discussion about this in the Indian press as well. The Indian just said like a bureaucratic official to this event because they suspected it would be the kind of farce that it was, and they didn't want to be subjected to that kind of pressure.
Also, they're not sycophants in the way that
yeah,
the way the European leaders are. But it's a little bit different, especially since Modi has been pissed off that Trump keeps saying that he ended the war with Pakistan and all of this other stuff, the trade things.
Yeah.
I think I partially agree with you, partially, and I want to get your take on my take. If there was a difference in the 60s when you had these violent, aggressive chaos in America. And, Nixon was bombing constantly, illegally bombing Laos, illegal, like the pilots didn't even necessarily know what they were actually bombing. And you got people being brought back in body bags. And I'm telling you, in America, when you bring soldiers back in body bags with flag draped coffins, somebody's going to answer for that. And I think that is the biggest disconnect between the Iraq war, and what's taking place in Gaza. There are no Americans coming back in body bags, meaning this is not a feedback mechanism. It's just conscience. Does your conscience bother you enough where you're willing to get engaged? Now, etherically, yes, right? Like if somebody just asks you, hey, how do you feel about women and children being murdered? Oh God, that's horrible. I think that's horrendous. And so you would get Tucker Carlson, you would get some of these other people saying, I think they have other reasons for it. The whole Jews kill Jesus thing, I think, is in their minds. But put that to the side. You would get some people who would say, that's disgusting. We don't like that. Now, are they willing to fight the cops over it? Are they willing to throw their bodies where they're getting beat and they lose their jobs over it? No. If this was Iraq, or if this was Vietnam, where your uncle came back in a body bag, your cousin, your family members, your friends, you can see your community. You are seeing Americans dying in a war that the president lied you into, or at the very least that you don't believe in anymore. That's different. And so I agree with you that there are some protests that cut more. The issue with the Gaza stuff is that the other stuff just takes priority. Like in Germany, where they were losing, there was a report that came out that was showing that they were shutting down beer factories in Germany. That's mind-blowing, right? Like they're losing hundreds of thousands of jobs. Okay, well, that's obviously going to take priority over something where German troops are not coming back in body bags, or people aren't losing their jobs. And the same thing is true in America. Italy, maybe a little bit different. They seem to, it's bugging the hell out of them more.
Yeah.
But
and look,
give me a take
I think that's right. I mean, and you can see that, I guess, in Europe at the moment, like the Czech election,
Yes.
part of that reaction is, we're sick of supporting Ukraine the Ukraine war. We're sick of supporting the Ukraine refugees, which is not a particularly noble sentiment, but that's driving people. And or the anti-migrant sentiment, which I think we might have discussed before, which is quite prominent in Europe. The other thing about the sort of late 60s and early 70s, or the protest marches about the Vietnam War, and they were huge in Australia too.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, huge. It was, I think they were called moratorium marches. I mean, I vaguely remember. I think my farmer was going to them or something like that. But I've seen photographs of them, like big protests, and they were coinciding with a whole lot of other social uproar. This is like May '68 in Paris, the sexual revolution, the sort of women's lib, gay lib. The anti-colonial struggle is very, very strong. Obviously, I mean, there's still quite a few colonies in the late 1960s. So there was, I think, a broader context to it as well. And in addition, or a broader context of social discontent and some utopian thinking, I guess, about social reordering. But also, hey?
You call it utopian? No, this is the word that you use for it. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of radical utopian thinking, and like in May '68, that there people would write these sort of slogans on as part of the sort of pitched battle on the streets, and say "Sous le pavé la plage," which means under the pavements the beach. And I've lost track of my thought. I think I was.
I'm
sorry,
yes,
that's right. No, that's okay. It was a nice distraction. I'm trying to come back to the point, but
you were saying that they basically had these big ideas at the time.
Yeah. But the other thing about the reason the war got closed down in Vietnam, etc., was there was a sort of elite disenchantment with the policies as well. So it's all very well having the people on the streets, but it's also a lot of the political leaders, the senior business people, the officials, the intellectuals, if you like, etc. The elites, who also sort of had a change of mind and had some alternative solutions going on as well. So, and I think that's one of the big dilemmas at the moment, isn't there? At the moment you have a pretty consolidated set of opinions amongst the. Let's call them the ruling elite. Let's say. I mean, it's not a great term, but let's say that. There's not, in Peter Turchin's term, the counter elite, or if it is, it's people like Donald Trump. It's sort of like a comic, farce of a counter elite. There aren't really the people within the institutions, if you like, who have reasoned, practical, alternative answers that are actually workable, and that some of this protest energy could then say, aha, let's do this with Palestine, rather than just protest about it.
Well, I think they just disagree with the protesters. There's a difference. And to be honest, I think part of it too is I have a few rules. Habitual liars lie is one of them. You tell the truth, the end war, you lie to start wars. But one of my other ones is that protests, the longer they go on, they take on the energy of themselves. Meaning, the longer they go on, the more instantiated they get, the more bigger the things that they want in those protests. It's almost like they get hardened in what they want, especially if they get an energy, almost like a hurricane.
Yep.
And I think part of the problem that they're maybe concerned about also is you may have people who are in a Gaza protests who will fuse with an economic issue protests. So, for example, you may have an issue in France where there's like, hey, we don't like this Gaza issue, but we also don't like this economic issue, in which case both of these things start to kind of dovetail. In Italy, for example, that may be what's taking place in Italy. Why
Yeah,
Italy's
exactly. That may well be the
aggressive.
case in Italy. And like, I know there's debate about color revolutions and things like that, but certainly the situation in Nepal is like that. There's multiple
Yes,
things going on, and they, as you say, it's sort of it evolves dynamically and a little bit chaotically, depending on the forces, how those sort of forces interact with each other.
Madagascar. Just
Yeah,
rebellion.
and Madagascar might be a similar situation. I just don't know all that much about that situation, but I do seem to recall hearing in the Indian media somewhere a Madagascar politician sort of saying, we've got the same kind of corruption sort of issues in Madagascar as well. So, and the corruption. I mean, there's corruption.
Everywhere.
There's always a good reason to start protesting
bigger.
against corruption because it's always there.
Right. Well, that's the rub, right? It's like two things can be happening at once. Like, I don't doubt
Yeah.
that Nepal had certain issues,
Yeah,
but I also
absolutely.
I don't doubt either that there was always US, AID, all of these other groups that the US had effectively put money into. I don't think it's coincidence that it's on the border of China. Like all of these things, like if you notice, all of these countries around China were catching fire. You get Pakistan and India, you get Cambodia and Thailand. You get, I mean, for God's sake, it's like all of these countries that are around China just so happen to catch fire. And it's like it's a super coincidental.
Well, in India they also say it's not a coincidence. All these countries around India. I mean, so the Bangladesh, and there was lots of talk about American involvement in the Bangladesh thing, and Muhammad Yunus, another Nobel Prize winner, and there's issues going on in Myanmar. There's the Pakistan, the Balochistan, Nepal.
Speaking of that, please finish your point because I want to show you something after you make that point because there's a really good example of something very bizarre.
Yeah, well, I mean, just very briefly on Nepal, I did hear a very eminent Nepalese economist and person who's worked with both the Indian and Nepalese governments, who was actually there during the events as well. And he said that it was a bit like what you were saying, that there were certain things happening, and then it took on a different sort of complexion. There was some quite targeted violence, and he kind of implied there might have been, criminal cover-up type things, but he wasn't fully explicit about it. But he certainly thought there was foreign involvement in some way, but I think he felt it wasn't fully controlled by foreign actors, if you like.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Brian Berletic has done really good work giving analysis of that. But as you point out, it's like this stuff is not always exactly controlled in the way that people often like to think it's controlled. That there's a chaotic element associated with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's decades
of
of work on revolutionary crowds, so they're strange beasts.
Take a look at this. So, what's ironic? I will be going to Nepal in a couple of weeks. I had looked at going to Madagascar. Like everywhere I want to go, right? It's something going on. I was considering going to Philippines. They've had an earthquake in Philippines. Again, it's like God hates the Philippines. This is the Indonesian president. I'm not going to say anything bad about Indonesia while I'm here. I've loved it here. It's a great country. Yeah, I've enjoyed it here. In fact, at Malaysia also, I've enjoyed both locations. And I was going to consider going to Cambodia, but the visa stuff is a little bit weird. And the Philippines hates visitors, apparently, because their visa system is insane. But listen to what he says here. They catch him. This is the president of a prime minister of Indonesia. They catch him on a hot mic. President. It's hard to hear, but he's effectively saying it's not safe in the region, security-wise. He says, "Can I meet Eric?" Now that's weird. Let's keep going. He says, "I have Eric give you a call." Trump said he's such a good boy. I'll have Eric give you a call. We look for a better place.
So is he saying that this is not the place to be talking about this issue?
I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out what he meant by that, because he was like, "We'll look for a better place," and he was like, "Can I have Eric?" He said, "I'll have Eric give you a call." He said, "Basically, can I talk to Eric?" He says, "Security wise, it's not safe," and Trump says something to him, and he says, "Security wise, it's not safe. Can I talk to Eric?" Trump says, "I will have Eric give you a call." Trump says he's such a good boy, and he says something like, it may be like, "This is not the right place to have this conversation, so I'll talk to Eric." Maybe that's what he's trying to imply. He says Eric or Don Jr. Effectively, either one is okay.
Well,
that's such a weird conversation.
It is a weird conversation. I mean, but this is this weird oligarchic family sort of aspect of American politics that, I mean, it's not just Trump either. I mean, remember, Biden's, wasn't that long ago? The Clintons, the Bushes.
I know, but for some reason that feels very wild to me, where he's like, "Hey,
this is like, it's in a different league. It's a level of oligarchy not seen for 3,000 years, I think."
But there's one other part to that. He's talking about this in the context of security, meaning the security situation. I could be wrong. The security situation in Indonesia is not safe. So can I talk to your son? It's like, what? What?
Look,
what do you need to bribe his son?
I'm not sure. I mean, because the sons have been involved in the various business interests, like the Witkoff's sons and all that sort of stuff, also with Pakistan as well. And it was the Pakistani Prime Minister who kind of said, "Look," had his sort of "look at me" moment in the middle of this sort of press conference. And has, reportedly been doing various deals around Bitcoin type, cryptocurrency type arrangements with the Trumps. Whether he's referring to that, whether he's referring to the protests and broader security in Indonesia, or whether he's referring to just there is something important I want to talk to you about, but we don't do it on a public stage with a camera pointing at me. And I was, a former general of the Indonesian Armed Forces, and I do know about security protocols, Donald. So I don't know. It could be any of those three things. My hunch, just, I mean, looking at those little grabs.
I want to talk to your son.
Yeah. So maybe there's some sort of business dealing type thing he wants to do. But the son has been quite active with Pakistan. Maybe Indonesia's aware of that. I mean, there was significant representation of the various Islamic, states, not in that sense, but, the Islamic nations at that event. So maybe he is just doing a good national leader thing and saying, I know how you do business with the Trumps, and that he's here with the sons.
I know how you do business with the Trumps. That's the way I took it, though. Well, because when there's been heavy protests in Indonesia. And I don't know if he's looking at Indonesia, he's saying, well, I've seen what's been taking place in these, I've seen what took place in Nepal, I've seen what take place in some of these other countries. I need to be on the good side of the US. Hey, Trump, can I speak to your kid? I know your kid is the business aspect of this outfit. And I know that if I am in good relations with, God, man, I'm in Indonesia, right?
Look,
so
Prabowo was at the St. Petersburg International Forum, sat next to Vladimir Putin at that. He was at the I can't remember whether he was at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but he
Yes.
was certainly at the the military parade. At the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, he said, Indonesia's policy is to have many friends and zero enemies. And,
Right.
I just think he's just using a opportunity, which he probably doesn't get very often, to buttonhole Trump and say,
I see.
let's have a discussion about something that's important. I don't know quite what it would be. Australia's got quite strong relationships with Indonesia, not as strong as they could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very significant economy, so there could be any number of things, and especially with some of the deals going down with the Trump
Yes.
family, he's probably just aware of, well, this is how you do business with the United States of America these days. And I'm a
That's so
pragmatic
sad.
realist, and
He just seemed very concerned. Like, he's legit seemed concerned. And maybe I'm interpreting his expression wrong.
yeah. Look,
but
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
My hunch is he's probably gently guiding Trump not to talk too openly about whatever it was they wanted to talk about in an
I see.
open mic situation, because he was looking straight at the camera, and he's a very smart cookie.
Yeah. This is not
And
the right
Donald
time to say,
Trump
"I wanna
had
talk
his
to your
back
kid."
to the camera and is, not
He
such
wants
a
to
smart
talk to me
cookie.
about security. He wants to talk like kid. Like, that's the first thing he says on mic, right? Jeff, thank you for this, man. I always appreciate these conversations. I swear to God, I love these talks. I love your channel, the Burning Archive. I say it every time. I don't do it for everybody's channel. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, I don't. Your channel
Yep.
is one of those that I like and I learn stuff from every time you have it. And just for the audience, so they would know where to find you. We are joined. You have been listening to Dr. Jeff Rich. Dr. Jeff Rich is a historian, author, retired government official from Melbourne, Australia. With a PhD in history and over 3 decades of experience in government, he created the Burning Archive YouTube channel and Substack page, where he shares commentaries, book reviews, interviews on world history, culture, and politics. He has written 4 books, including 13 Ways of Looking at a Bureaucrat. Jeff, what are the name of some of the other books that you wrote?
Well, I wrote a book of poetry called Gathering Flowers of the Mind, and then a book of essays called From the Burning Archive. It's sort of, I sort of started writing a blog in sort of 2010 while I was a government official, and I was formally not allowed to do that. And so I sort of collected those things together in the book's 13 Ways of Looking at a Bureaucrat, which is the From the Burning Archives, the more history, cultural sort of side of things, and 13 Ways of Looking at a Bureaucrat is more about what bureaucracy is actually really like, and also various writings on government issues, including a few essays on political order and decay in the United States of America. But yeah, so that's
very cool, Jeff.
That's what the book's
that's
about.
So cool.
And can I just mention one thing, because I know
Please.
you mentioned the Nobel Peace Prize in the thing, and we didn't really talk about that, but I did do a video the other day on the Nobel Peace Prize, and my Substack on the weekend also has a bit of commentary on the history and things like that. So people, if they are interested in the Nobel Peace Prize, might want to check out both the video and the Substack piece.
Jeff, you're a fantastic man. Dr. Jeff Rich, you be safe, okay? Have a good one. Or have a good night, I should say.
Yep. Thanks, Jamal. Bye-bye.
Love